Hello, Super Friends, and welcome to Pappy Hour. I just spoke with the worst villain in Magic the Gathering history. Honestly, it was just Coach, voice acting for his new unofficial audiobook. Join me across the table as we talk to Yawgmoth's Coach. Good afternoon, Coach. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing good, and I'm just finally got to be able to talk to you for this evening.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about your latest endeavor. I've watched you and your fellow Tin Street hooligans have enjoyed the tomfoolery you guys have there, but you've started something new. Can you tell us a little bit about your latest project?
Yes, the latest project that I've been working on, and just really finished last week, was for legal reasons, I did the unofficial complete audiobook for the Thran. So now there is a listenable version of that prequel book to Magic the Gathering and before Urza. So it's basically, I did an audiobook.
Where can we find this? Where can we find you? This is an opportunity to talk about your social media connections, but I also want fans to be able to listen to this unofficial book.
My channel is called the Card Bazaar, and the way Bazaar spelled is B-A-Z-A-A-R, kind of like Bazaar Baghdad, like in the I think it was Arabian Nights. And so basically, they can not only find the Thran audiobook, but they can find other stuff like I did a top 100 best cards all time, the 2018 edition, then the Magic the Gathering timeline, which nobody, I guess there was nothing up for that, so I took that task upon myself, and now it's actually one of the most viewed videos I have on the channel. And then I also do the card anthology series where I go over the history of each set of Magic, and it's just been a blast so far. I've really gotten to know a lot of great members of the community. But the Thran, first, as far as I know, it's the first unofficial complete audiobook on YouTube that's available to everyone. And they can start listening, get in depth with the story there, and hopefully, as the years go on, maybe the months go on, the years go on, we can get into the other books and kind of progress that storyline.
What made you want to tackle this topic and pick this book?
It's the prequel. It's the first, as far as I can tell, it's the first canon audiobook that's gonna start pretty much like the story of the most important villain that Magic has known, and that's Yawgmoth. So it was the very first canonical book, like a complete book, that will later lead into like the Brothers' War and the stories that we appreciate more of. Even though it's about like 4,000 or 5,000 years before the Brothers' War, it's still a book that sets up most of the plots of the other stories. It kind of gives the background of Yawgmoth overall as a person and his rise to power. And really, it just made sense to me just start with the first one. That's how the way I think. When I started the card anthology, it was start from the very beginning and keep going forward. It's just order-wise, it just makes sense. That's just how I think.
Tell us a little bit about your process. How do you keep track of all the characters? And having listened to it, I noticed you have different voices for characters. How do you manage all these things?
Pen and paper. It's the way I do my voices is I have multiple things that I go through. I go through either accents, pitch, and I also have the pitch shifter in the audio programming that I use. And I think really I use Adobe Premiere because it has a really good pitch shifter in there. But I really keep track of it with pen and paper, like writing the values down. I also put side notes of how I'm going to speak with them, or how I'm going to speak as them. Like for instance, Glaceon, I wanted to use my own voice because what I assumed was that he's going to be used most of the time in the story, and it actually ended up being Yawgmoth. So with Yawgmoth, I actually took I used a lower tone with him, and then I used the pitch shifter to go into, well, if we're going to click hear the devices and all that. Like, that's the voice that I use for Yawmon. And then I'll go in later, make it lower so it even goes deeper than that. So it can be very distinguishable. Different types of strategies to kind of distinguish the voices. Because if someone can't figure out a line of dialogue, or maybe they miss something, if they can hear who it is, if they can hear that pitch, or if they can hear that certain accent, they'll know who's talking. So It's kind of a backup plan for like the book and the voices and the dialogue.
Take a static sentence like this. I didn't say she stole my pencil. Adding inflection on any one of those 7 words completely changes the meaning of what would be otherwise a rote sentence. How did you determine what words and what emphasis to add? How did you get the psychological understanding from one of the worst villains in Magic the Gathering history?
You visualize a setting as you are reading it. So you can kind of figure out what kind of tone's being set based on the words that are being used, based on who's interacting with who. And, if it's deeper into the story, you kind of already know what's going on and what's going to be set up already. So it's basically what's being told as far as like the surroundings and the setting that could potentially set the mood, or the previous chapters could even set that up also. It really all depends on the setting, because if it's like a race for time, you are going to use that kind of like tone for that dialogue, and that's going to really set the precedent for the rest of the dialogue going into at least through that chapter, or at least through that scene. And probably the hardest one to do was I want to say Yawmon was probably the hardest one. He probably had the most dialogue, and kind of figuring out he's not completely, I don't want to say he's like completely evil, but there are times where he emphasizes like evil stuff. But overall, I think he was really trying to help the Thran evolve into something that could be much bigger and much better than what they currently are. So it's like his emotions are kind of, his motives to what other people see might be very conflicted to what he sees. And so, but it's really just the background. You're kind of a voice actor in this case with the audiobook. So a lot of times it wasn't perfect. It did take significant amount of time, and it took a couple of trials at least to get it down to where this is what Rebecca's going to sound like. This is what Yawmon should sound like.
You'd mentioned it took a lot of time, a lot of retries. How much did that pressure and that timeliness settle into your mindset as you did this project?
Because my channel's really, the way I see it, it's based on like a nostalgic factor. And basically my mission statement would be, I do not want my content to be irrelevant. If somebody comes back in 5 or 6 years, I want it to still be relevant today as it was 5 years ago or 5 years later. So it's kind of like evergreen. It's just it needs to stay relevant. And while this did take a lot of time, there were a lot of motivating factors. Like but it was mostly pride. It was mostly I'm taking pride in my work. I'm taking pride in something that no one wants to do. You're going to learn a lot from it. It's like taking your first job as like a teacher or a coach. Like the situation I was in like 6 years ago is that your first year you're going to learn the most about this profession that you would never get in a classroom setting. So basically doing the experience, or basically doing the work and just getting the experience from it, I've learned a lot. So, if I do go into the next book, it's going to be, I'll have a much reformed plan, and I'll know what to do because I have more experience in it. But it's pride. Like I was kind of driven by pride, if that makes any sense.
It does, and seems kind of eerily ironic considering you're talking about the arch villain. How much of yourself did you see in the characters?
I would want to say probably, if maybe not the majority, but I think a good portion I saw myself more in Yawmon because of the want to have something accomplished, trying to get something accomplished, and trying to get it done, doing the hard work to where they're going to achieve that goal. Now, the methods he did, a lot of times they were planned out, and I do like to plan out myself a lot of times. So, in some of those aspects, I can see myself in. But there are some times where I don't relate to Yama because there are some times where I do have to switch gears and maybe just have to wing it, or maybe just have to do something that wasn't pre-planned in the first place. So Rebecca, like her was trying to get the Thran Temple, and so like Thran Temple is this thing that she wants to finish, something grand, something big, something that's over the top. And the way I see myself compared to her is like, here's the audiobook I'm doing, and yeah, for one person it's going to be a lot, but once it's done, hopefully it will make a significant impact on the community, or hopefully it'll get enough attention to where people are going to seek me out more, to where we can go in to do more of the stories.
It sounds like your passion to do it really overtook the learning curve. If you were an insider at Wizards of the Coast, give me a pitch. You've got that 5,000 year expanse. What would be the, teaser of a set that you might design? What would that look like?
You could have a set idea where you could like throw in some like kind of like antiquities. You have some variant artifacts scattered about, and these would be like those rare antiquities, those rare like artifacts. But you could also do it to where people are like more barbaric, but they're struggling to survive, so they're not going to have like these flying vehicles that people are taking everywhere to work or everywhere they want to go inside of a city state, or they're not going to be propelled 1,500 like a whole city, like the size of Minas Tirith almost in Lord of the Rings, where it's 1,500 feet in the air above like a volcano. They're going to have to go back to the basics. They're going to have to basically learn how to walk, invent the wheel. They're going to have to like be hunting for food, like, or trying to figure out agriculture, figure out how they're going to live without power stones, have another energy source. I mean, there's so much you can work with. So, but it'd be like getting hit with a bomb that sends civilization back, or like even the Dark Age, the middle, when the Roman Empire fell, that there's this Dark Age where not a lot of advancement happened. Like, had the Roman Empire not fell, we would probably be most likely a way more advanced civilization than we're right now. So, but it'd be like getting knocked back to the Stone Age and then progressing from there, and how that 5,000 year gap, how the end of the Houseites go into like the Brothers' War, and how these new individual civilizations arose. So like Terrissier and Coilo, like the Caves of Coilos, how are they playing into this factor? And how long did it take before people realized like there's no more like power stone technology?
It sounds like you're describing a post-apocalyptic genre. When a fan listens to your audiobook rendition, looks at other lore on your channel, what are 3 things you hope they take away? 3 things.
That the lore is still very much appreciated and still relevant. That, man, this is going to be a hard one. But just to appreciate the overall lore and what these people at WotC do design and what they do come up with, especially like some of the older stuff. The fact that most sets are going to be very competent, and that there is some sort of structure. I mean, they plan these sets like, I think it was Rudy that said they plan these sets like 2 years ahead. So they're playing the long game, and they're very well planned out. They're very well thought. There are going to be some slips in the cracks. There's stuff that's not going to be completely perfect, even though as much as we want, the main example was when Alpha and Beta came out compared to like the Dark, where you had that steep drop off, and then it finally comes and levels out. I mean, that was the biggest gap that probably WotC ever came up with. So know that some sets are going to have mistakes, and WotC's not prone to they're prone to mistakes. So appreciation lore, know that WotC is human, they're run by humans, and just to I would say just to try to find other people that share this kind of ordeal. Like I know Simon from Aether Hub, we're very, much into the lore. He's much more into the newer lore and does go back every now and then. But searching out, like, what I want people to take away from my channel is there's other channels that, do this. So there's a great expanse. There's great people that do good work. Very entertaining in some cases, like MTG Spice Rack. His video over the Goblin lore was fantastic. Like it popped up on my feed and it was like 2 days old raised. And so I started looking into it. Probably about 2 minutes into it, man, I don't really want to watch this. And then probably around the time when I was about to switch on my controller and switch to another video, it got to the portion where he was basically saying, I tried to do this so many times, and like I redid this, and if you don't get these to share with 10 friends. And as soon as he said that, I was like, I'm in. Let's watch it. And I've talked to Connor a little bit. Connor's a great guy. He's got a lot of big plans going on. So, but there's great people that do work, and that's one of the most recent people that I get entertained by. Like I said, I've mentioned Simon before. Jon from 10th Street Hooligans, like the main host, basically. He's a big lore person too, and he's the person I go to if there's like any kind of getting me caught up with certain things. So, and he really appreciates the audiobook stuff that I did, because he could go in and start listening to it more and start listening. Like I guess he just wants to listen to my voice. That's what I'm getting taken away from. But he gets to listen to me go and talk about Yalmog and his rise to power. That's basically what the Thran is.
What was one thing you learned about yourself through this process?
Persistent.
Did you not know that beforehand?
But what I found out about myself is that limit can go much, much further than what I could think of. So, because, me being persistent is like, okay, doing a project for like 5 weeks, like I did with the timeline. Okay, that's being pretty persistent. That's being pretty spot on. To do it more than double the amount of time, that was hard. And it was still achievable. So the fact that I could still push through this was just simply amazing. Like, so, I went further than what I thought I could. So that's one thing I learned about myself, that, while I do get the job done, there were some points in time where it's like, man, is this really worth it? But yeah, keep telling yourself, it's like, you're in this, you start it, finish it, and take pride in it.
It sounds like listeners, viewers of your channel, especially with this latest project, they can take away not only the lore, not only the passion that you put behind the characters, to be what you believe the best you can provide, the best you can do. As we finish, what lies in store for you next? We've talked a lot about the history of MTG. What does the future hold for you, Coach?
Well, I do want to go back to the card anthology. So I think I'm going to do about, depending on what sets, I'm trying to think what's after Ravnica, but I think there's like 2 sets of 2, or there's a block right after that. I can't remember what it was. The name's losing me right now. So I want to get back to at least one more block. I want to get back to doing another, like maybe another top 100 or another top 20. And then I have a bigger project that I just started working on probably a couple of days ago, trying to do some more research, like I was saying. It's going to be like a Dominarian based like video idea, but I don't know how to really approach this yet. But it's going to be probably as big as the MTG timeline video. So it's probably going to be a good longer video. I want to shoot for like 45 minutes to an hour, like I did with the timeline video, because there's a lot of stuff to cover with Dominaria. So, that's what I plan on. And then if the video keeps getting more attention and people keep coming to my channel, I think the Brothers War would be a great summertime project.
Nice. And you'd mentioned a lot of people that I'm sure would be interested in possible collaborations with you, so you wouldn't have to shoulder the entire war yourself.
Well, Jon wants to do Mishra, so that's something I got to take into consideration. But I also, when I was on 10th Street, my older brother's an audio engineer, and so I'll really actually want to see if I could actually go record it at his studio and see if he could do that and kind of take it off my shoulders, because he does owe me a favor. So I'm going to try to see if I can bank on that favor. If people want to message me and I want to play this character, that's something I'll take into consideration. So, and then if I think I'm just going to do it by myself, I'll basically say, hey, because of this, and this, I'm just going to do it by myself.
It sounds like you're always thinking about the community, whether it's an evergreen project they can look back on for posterity, or adding in some of your friends to really accentuate the next project. Again, Coach, where can we find you?
Y'all can find me on the Card Bazaar YouTube channel, and then y'all can also find me a coach at the Card Bazaar CC. And another thing I just actually did today was I launched a podcast, and basically I'm going to put the Thran audiobook in a podcast form.
Great.
So,
I'll make sure to add links to those in the video description. And you've already tackled a lot of history. You've already spent a lot of hard work doing this project, and I really appreciate the time that you spent with me and the patience that you've had with me as well as yourself to complete the unofficial Thran anthology book, the beginnings of Magic the Gathering history. And again, Coach, thank you so much.
thank you for having me on.